Okay, to add to the story about the distance versus time graph that we've looked at in the other video, we're going to be trying to look at how can you look at a graph and determine a story that possibly could be happening from the graph. So you have three stories here with the graph that matches. So if you remember what we talked about on the other video, this, if you're starting off at time 0 and the distance from home is 0, this must mean that you're at your house. So if you are increasing on this part of the graph, then you've got to imagine that as being going away from your home. Now, a lot of people interpret this as a hill, where you're going up a hill, kind of across the hill, and down the hill, and that's not really what you're interpreting. Because if you did think of it as a hill, and here's your house, if the hill is over here, and you decided to go on a walk, the whole time that you are walking, whether you're walking up the hill, across the hill, or going down the hill, that graph, if you're graphing the distance from home, should be increasingly going up, 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 up away from your house. Even though that your landscape that you're walking on might be going up and down, that's not what you're actually measuring. You're measuring the distance from your house. So this one right here, when it says he rode his bike east up a steep hill, this isn't measuring a hill. And then the slope of the hill eased off, and then he raced on the other side. So this one right here kind of reminds me of this situation right there. It looks like he's always going away from his house, so the graph should have been continuously going up. So then we're left with these two stories here where Tom took his dog for a walk to the park. So you're assuming he started at home. Tom went for a jog. He's probably at home when he went and set off. The second sentence, when I compare it, because right now I can't eliminate either one because it looks like they were both at home. Then it says he set off slowly and then increased his pace. This says at the end of the road, he bumped into his friend and his pace slowed. So you got to figure out of these two pieces, which one was he going fast and which one was he going slow. So from the last video that we did, the steeper the line segment, the faster he's going. So you've got to compare them and think about if you had drawn the rise of a run, the one that travels the most distance in the least amount of time is the steepest. So this is this distance, this is it this time, this distance and time. So the very beginning right here, this has to be when he was walking faster because this line segment is not as steeper than this one. So this is when he had to kind of slow down. Now, if at some point on his walk he decided to stop, okay, he could have decided later that he was going to go to the store. And as he got to the store, he stood on the sidewalk and talked to his best friend for 20 minutes. Well, one thing that we cannot stop in this life is time. So time keeps going, but does distance can stop. So if he stops and talks to a friend, the graph would kind of level out where the time keeps ticking on, but since he's not going further away from his home or going back towards his home, it's going to level off. So going back to figuring out which story matches with this is faster, this is slower. So this says he starts off slower, so I've got to eliminate this one. So it has to be this story right there. The end of the road, he bumped into his friend and slowed down. Then when he left his friend, he quickly walked back home. So this does make sense that this is the jogging part compared to this being the walking part, because the jogging part would be more steep. So if I had to answer the question of which story best answers it, it would be C. That's the answer that I would have picked on that. Now, what you are to do, you are to take table graphs that you have here, and you're going to be matching it to the different pictures. So if you notice, you've got a couple of tables that do not have the distance on the side. So this is something that you're going to have to think of according to whatever graph doesn't have a table that goes with it. So I would be paying attention to what's happening to the distance. Are they going up? Are they going down? Is the distance staying the same? And with that, keep messing up on my mouse. Ah, well, okay, so here are your stories. So on this MFAL, you're going to be cutting out these stories and trying to decide what table would go with these stories. And then you have graphs that also you have to decide what type of graphs would go with it. Now you can kind of see they don't have numbers there, so you're kind of just estimating according to the tables what would make sense. And just kind of think, what would be happening to the distance here? Well, naturally the distance would be going up, then the distance would be going down, and the distance going up, and that will kind of help you figure out what tables to match with that. There are probably, as always with these formative assessment lessons, there's probably um, possibly a blank graph, a blank table, a blank story that you've got to make up. So anytime you get something blank, make sure that you don't throw those cards away, because that means that you're going to have to figure it out on your own. Again, this MFAL would be one that I would at least pair up with somebody so that you can bounce ideas off each other, or you can work in a small group of 3 or 4. So good luck on this one.